Hi there, Randy, K7AGE. I'm with John, AL7ID.
Welcome to Fairbanks.
Fairbanks. And it's balmy out. It's what? Only
10 above.
10 above. We've been up here for about a week. We've seen about -10, -15 while we've been here. So I palled around with John at Seaside and Pacific Con and Dayton and such. And we're sitting in the bar and John pulls out his phone and he shows us pictures of his new ham shacks. And I've always wanted John to do a presentation because building it up out here, it's got a lot of climate things you have to be aware of. So that's where we're at, and I'm making a video. So, John,
well, I'm glad you came to visit. So I think we met at first time in Pacificon about 12 or 13 years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember how long. Yeah.
And I'd been watching a how to do satellites with your handheld arrow antenna.
Oh wow!
And that got the bug started. So.
Yeah.
I retired about 4 years ago, and my ham radio gear was shoved in a little desk built in a closet in the second bedroom of the house, so I decided to expand.
And expand you did.
And so this is what we wound up with here.
Yeah.
Is a separate building, which is 16 by 24, just for the ham shack.
Yeah.
And that was built the year I retired in 2021.
So what are some of the challenges of building here in this climate and cold? And
well, the construction season is short in the summer, and when I built it was the year that a sheet of plywood or a Navarra Gold were about the same cost.
Yeah.
And that kind of raised the price a little bit. And I didn't have that much of an advanced plan to line up my contractors ahead of time. A good friend of mine was a general contractor, but we hired a dirt work guy, and we got him to come over in May, which is really early in Fairbanks for construction.
Yeah.
And as we were digging the foundation, we ran into not permafrost, but frost line.
Okay.
And I wanted to dig down about 4 feet, and we ran into frost at about 3 feet, so we wound up digging down 5 feet. There's one challenge we ran into: more digging, more fill material.
Yeah.
So other than that, it's really cold, right? I mean, and so the place is super insulated.
Yeah.
It's built on a concrete slab with a heated floor and foam underneath the concrete and 8-inch thick walls and everything.
It's nice and cozy in the winter.
It's very cozy. And I think maybe we'll have a chance to look at that.
Yeah, we'll look at the heating. So it's very nice.
It turned out real well. This is about 3 or 4 seasons I've had on it.
Okay.
And, you know, it's got a real small heater in it, but it doesn't need much, and it's able to keep up even at 40 below.
Cozy.
Yep.
So while we're outside, let's talk about antennas, because that's probably one of the most important parts of a ham radio station.
So
the higher the better, the more the better.
Right, exactly. And maybe we can get a shot of away from the ham shack is 70 feet of Roan 45.
Talk about
I had previously Cushcraft A3 with a 40-meter add-on kit for high bands and HF, and some long wires for low bands, and that worked pretty well. But I wanted to step it up a notch, and so I got a 70 feet of Roan 45, had that put up, and put a high-gain TH11DX antenna on it.
That's a big antenna.
So that is a big antenna.
It's really big on the ground when you put it together, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah. So, it's a big tinker toy. I built it all from a kit, put the parts and pieces together in the garage, and then assembled them out next to the tower on some sawhorses, and then we hired a crane to put it all up. And it's got a big rotator, and I put a tall mast on top of the tower, and there's a little 3-element 6-meter Yagi above the HF one. And it's got a big old Yaesu 2800 rotator on it that does the job pretty well. And so I've used that with great success. I know that you have a tilt-over tower.
Yeah.
This one doesn't.
Does it?
So I'd be looking at, hiring a tower climber or something to get up there if I needed to fix it.
Right.
But knock on wood, that hasn't happened yet.
Good.
And then
now tower 2.
Actually, that's tower 3.
Oh, 3.
Because 1 was on the house, which is a separate building.
All right.
Another ham. I happened to leave town, and a friend of mine and I bought his tower stuff, and I got 4 sections of Rowan 25.
Okay.
And that's where I want to put my small VHF local antennas. And then I got into satellite in a big way.
Yeah.
And to start with, I had put it on a little pipe on the corner of the porch for the ham shack. But there's a lot of trees on my lot here. And, you know, it's not really popular to cut them all down just to work the satellite at the low elevation on the horizon. So I put the antenna up in the air. And so that's been real effective.
Until.
Well, yeah. We had a snow and ice storm around Christmas time, and the weight of the snow and ice was too much for one of the clamps that's holding the VHF antenna section.
Yeah.
And so when I tried to move it, the VHF one was so heavy, the clamp slipped.
Yeah.
And then it was Christmas, and it was dark, and it was the holidays, and it was 20 below, and they're out on the end of a 10-foot piece of pipe, so it's really hard to get to. So I finally lined up somebody with a bucket truck to come out next week, and we're going to loosen the clamp, straighten it out, tighten it down, drill a hole through the clamp in the mast, and put a pin in it so that doesn't happen again. And we'll get back on the air. I've had so much fun with the fixed ground station satellite antenna stuff. I put it up in the fall of 23, and I've made thousands of contacts with it. I've worked all state satellite, you know, and 500 grids VUCC satellite. So I'm anxious to get back on the air. I have people, you know, on a regular basis there me and asking for schedules.
They want Alaska.
They do, yeah.
And it's also a rare grid, I would imagine.
BP64, yep. There's a number of satellite people in Alaska, not a huge number, but yeah, it's very popular.
Okay, so the tower looks, 75 feet away or so?
Yeah, something like that.
And
in order to protect the cables, I didn't want to lay them on the ground. We have moose walking through the yard. I didn't want to suspend them 5 feet in the air. We have moose walking through the yard. I didn't want to put them in conduit. You get them in, they never come out.
Yeah.
The conduit fills with water, and, you know, that's the end. So I had my contractor build what looks like, when it's not covered with snow, it looks like a dock going out into the lake.
Okay.
But the lid folds open. And this whole 75 feet opens up, and it's a cable tray.
Oh, neat.
So from under the porch, cables go in the cable tray, and then it folds shut. There's a compacted gravel pathway at the bottom.
Yeah.
And so it's relatively free of being molested by critters, and then goes into the panel there and then up the tower.
Very nice. Cool. And there's the big beam up there. Yeah. Okay, so to get the cables into the ham shack.
So they run from under the porch, from wherever they come from, and the nice folks at AL7ID's Metalworks make these great protector panel boxes. I got a couple of them, and so cables come up. I've got them all color coded, surge protectors for everything, and then I've got 3-inch metal conduit that goes through. There's a ground rod at the bottom. And then this pipe in the middle is my electrical service, so it's all a common point for electrical.
Okay. Wow.
So try to keep lightning on the outside.
Yeah.
I have another box similar to this out in the tower, which is a connection point for the cables that come from here out to there and then go up to the tower.
Okay.
So that way everything's grounded at the bottom of the tower as well as back here.
Right.
So I'd be able to feed a long wire dipole off of out there, or the big antennas up on the top.
Very nice.
And so I do have 2 vertical omnidirectional antennas for 220 and Diamond X50 for 2 meters 440 on a cross arm at 50 feet on that tower as well.
Okay.
So that all stops at that ground panel and then goes up the tower. So
good. So we're inside now, and probably one of the most important corners in the ham shack,
especially in the wintertime.
Especially in the wintertime, is the heating system. Yeah.
So this is my furnace. It's a 1,500 watt electric water heater.
Okay.
And because of the potential for freezing, there's a glycol mixture in the heating system. This is a concrete slab that's got PEX tubing in it, and you can see the PEX pipes going into the slab. And so the thermostat is a line voltage thermostat that controls a circ pump, switches that on and off, and just circulates the warmed up glycol from the little water heater in the slab, and in the wintertime keeps it a cozy 77 degrees with my little thermal gun there.
Yeah.
And it's like a super tanker. It's got a lot of inertia, and so the temperature can dip outside and it stays nice and warm in here. The walls are 8 inches thick with a lot of insulation, plus in the attic.
Yeah.
4 inches of foam all around the concrete. So things that we have to do when we build in the Arctic.
So no cold feet when you're in the ham shack.
Absolutely not.
No.
It's toasty warm.
Just take your shoes off, your socks, huh?
And the walls all have plywood underneath the sheetrock, so I can put up a screw anywhere I want to,
Right.
something on the wall.
Yeah.
And then I put another piece of plywood on for the backboard.
Yeah.
The heater, the pressure tank, the circ pump, the supply temperature, shut-off valves, charging spigots, return temperature. And then this is a heat recovery ventilator,
Okay.
so that I can circulate fresh air. And in Alaska, it's not so much that I've got cooking or bathroom odors in my ham shack. We have wildfires in the summertime.
Yeah.
And I want to filter that smoke and still get fresh air.
Yeah.
So this takes care of that. Put a charcoal filter element, and then
Life is good.
Yeah, it makes it breathable.
Yeah. Okay, this looks like workbench area.
This is the workbench area. It's got a computer on it right now, but most recently it had some packet radio stuff, and I got a dummy load over there and all kinds of things, so I can do mechanical work over here without disrupting the radio operations on the desk over there.
Okay.
So I got.
So you hate to have
full
little
of-
bits of solder fly off and hit the front of the
Right,
radio
or
and melt the
if I
displays.
drill a hole in something, little shavings, and
Yeah.
and so I got shelving with tools and parts and supplies, and another set of shelves over there, and then one of the things I really like about these benches, this is butcher block material just from Home Depot.
Yeah.
And got it all put together. I ordered these heavy threaded rods, and if you look underneath, you'll see the 2-inch black iron pipe for the legs.
Yeah.
Very sturdy. And the threaded rod makes the shelving adjustable.
Right.
So, did something similar to that on the radio desk side, only it's desk height instead
Sure.
of workbench height. But it's very solid, and I like it quite a lot.
So here's the radio desk on the left, the workbench on the right, with a walkway between them.
I'm sure lots of people have had the issue of your desk is pushed up against the wall,
Yeah.
and you can't get to stuff behind it. The idea here was to be able to get to what's behind it. I was going to build a wall here, and my wife suggested sort of this approach here, and that was a great idea. So we pursued that. And as I pointed out near the surge protector panels on the outside, you can see the two conduits here where the antenna cables come through the wall.
Yeah.
Here's the electrical panel I was talking about. And so this is the central grounding point. Got heavy copper wire. And then under the bench, there's copper pipe on both sides
Okay.
for a grounding bar. So you see strap going up to the radios and the tuners and everything. So it's all grounded. I got some basket
Yeah.
that the cable is mostly managed in. But I can get back here and change things quite easily.
Yeah,
which
there's
I have
one that's
done.
always too short. You have to take a shortcut or something.
And so that is what it is. But, I've got space in front of the panel in order to have clearance to get in there behind all the equipment. Same kind of adjustable shelves over here on the radio desk side. And it's worked out really well.
So now we're at what all this is for. To hold the radio so you can get on the air
So
and
this
be
is where-
radioactive.
This is where the fun happens.
The fun
That's right.
happens.
So I've set it up so that I'll get my computer monitors front and center, and radios here. The first shelf is adjusted to be able to have those radios sitting underneath there. So my HF rotator, my HF radio, HF tuners, satellite radio, and satellite antenna controllers. And then up here I've got my monobanded VHF radios and computers and UPS power over here.
So you hear much on 10 meter FM up here?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Lots.
From where?
All over the lower 48 and Japan.
Okay.
If you remember, Great Circle-wise, here in Alaska,
Yeah.
we're not very far from Japan.
Yeah.
And it's generally off the backside of the beam when I'm pointed at the lower 48, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at your azimuthal projection map, if I'm pointed over here, Japan's right the other way. So
And it doesn't make much difference if they're off the back of the beam.
it doesn't.
No,
there's it's like fish in a barrel.
Yeah,
and,
please.
And it's not hard DX to get Japan from Alaska.
Sometimes it's overwhelming, I think. Mm-hmm. Especially in like an FT8 where it's one after another and they want you. So what type of satellite stuff were you able to do here?
So let me show you the SAT controller interface stuff. All right, this is a computer display coming from the little CSN SAT controller box.
Yeah.
That is a wonderful product that will aim my antennas and tune the Doppler shift on my radio, and but not make me so I don't have to worry about the Kepler elements for rotating,
Right.
when the satellites come into view and that kind of stuff. And so, as an example here, I picked good old SO50.
Yeah.
And it tells me that they have acquisition of signal in 23 minutes.
If the antennas were in the right direction. Oh.
Yeah, so
Soon.
but it will
Yeah.
it will operate the Doppler shift on the radio.
Yes.
And,
9700.
Yep, IC 9700. Sets the mode whether it's FM or sideband, and so for a long time I only just had the FM radio and the Arrow antenna, which is sitting over there,
Yeah.
and it was all FM, and so now RS-44 is probably the big dog for working linear, although there
Okay.
are others.
Yeah.
And then during 2024, I spent a lot of time doing packet on IO117 Green Cube.
Green Cube, yeah.
Yep. Sadly, Green Cube suffered failure from probably radiation damage from one of those big solar flares that we had last summer.
Yeah.
And it's gone now. But I probably have over 2,000 contacts on Green Cube.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun. And with the medium Earth orbit, its hang time in the sky was an hour. So that
where
was
in the world were you able to work on that with that from here?
So maybe it'd be easier to tell you where I couldn't work.
Okay.
I couldn't work Antarctica. I couldn't work the tip of South America or the tip of South Africa. I did work India, the middle of Africa, northern South America, Australia, New Zealand, the Middle East, China, Russia, Scandinavia, and so it's very high, like 5,000 mile orbit really made that possible. Almost a hemisphere's worth,
Yeah.
not quite. So
how long would the passes be typically?
like I said, about an hour.
An hour. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was just, and at 1200 baud, it was a little bit slow.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very short contact, even shorter than JT's or FT8 with WSJTX, and fewer handshakes to make the contact happen. But it became so incredibly popular that it was often a traffic jam. You could transmit many times and not get digipeated because it was just a digipeater.
It's being saturated.
In space.
It'd be nice to have a linear satellite at that altitude.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah.
So RS-44 is not that high, but it's higher than SO50. So you probably get 20-minute long passes with RS-44, whereas SO50 is maybe about 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, and with RS-44, I've worked into the UK, Scandinavia, Northern Europe, France, Germany, Poland, and then over on the eastern side into Japan and Siberia.
Yeah. Wow.
So, we're kind of at the crossroads here. So there's a lot of different places that we can see from up here. Worked Hawaii. I worked Sean Kutzko, KX9X.
Oh, okay.
When he was on vacation in Hawaii on RS-44.
Neat.
So,
wow. You have a real comfortable place to come out on the long Alaska nights.
Right, and we're only 2/3 of the way through the Ham Shack tour here, because behind you is sort of the cozy domestic part.
Oh, okay.
And so I've got a little kitchenette area and a coffee table.
So John's wife does a lot of weaving, and she made this towel placemat or whatever. Mm-hmm. Look at it carefully. If you know CW, AL7ID. That is so neat. She did a great job on that.
Yep, and I've got a whole set of them for my little coffee table.
Oh, okay.
And she also made some new grill cloth for my Zenith shortwave radio that I haven't installed yet. That one doesn't have my call letters in it, but it's got a time period correct pattern in the weaving that we actually looked up on some websites about people that restore these radios. And she was able to weave some grill cloth that's going to look really nice in there.
Yeah, we're not going to take a tour of the weaving studio, but you saw what John did here. Just think of, 4 or 5 looms she has running in her own room off the side
We
over
usually
there.
meet for dinner.
You meet for dinner. So one of the things that my wife and I have been doing quite a bit up here is staying out until 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning looking up to get the aurora. How does that affect when you're on HF?
When the northern lights are good, the radio is usually not good.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, I've been on the radio and I can hear the aurora flutter. And I will get off the radio and go outside and look up, assuming we have clear skies, and see the northern lights.
So you'll see it flickering, the curtain effects? Or
Yep, absolutely. And it's the same mechanism that I believe causes reflection and refraction of radio waves, is just more intense and localized where the aurora is happening. And so radio waves that would normally be bouncing are now, they're still bouncing, but the aurora is not as large. It's in smaller pieces and it moves around. And so imagine if somebody was shining a flashlight at a mirror, but the mirror was wiggling. And that's maybe a good analogy about what's happening to the radio waves. And so the often intensity fluctuates quite a bit, and it's quite audible on voice and on CW.
you get a lot of phase distortion, like
you do,
warbling.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And depending on the intensity, then just like it does for propagation across this zone, sometimes we just don't have propagation because things are so highly ionized that the layers come down low. But northern lights, quad northern lights, there is some effect to it, and you can hear it. And even for my satellite operations on 2 meters and 70 centimeters, when I have my antennas pointed at a low elevation angle, like I'm trying to work into northern Europe from here, I'm going through so much of the atmosphere as opposed to straight up that it affects the signal strength and have those same issues with signal fluctuation. I think I was telling you a couple months ago I tried doing some FT4 on RS-44 satellite, and when we were having aurora, I could see my signals downlinked on the waterfall, but instead of nice, clean images on the waterfall, it was like splat, and it's all spread out, and they wouldn't decode. So, and the other interesting thing about northern latitudes, and to a certain extent it's not aurora, but just the fact that the magnetic North Pole is it's not in Alaska, but northern latitudes, is that the propagation models that you learn where signals go up here and come down over there, in northern latitudes or southern, the ionosphere is affected not parallel to the surface of the Earth because where the magnetic lines are going down to the pole. We're very often subject to asymmetrical propagation. Signals come in here and bounce down.
You can hear them.
Shoot them, and then we try to shoot out, but they can't hear us because they're leaving at a different angle than they're coming in.
Okay.
And so sometimes that's frustrating. I see a lot of signals on FT8, from Europe and other places, and I transmit, and they can hear me in California.
Yeah.
That's about it. So sometimes it's neat, and sometimes it doesn't work in your favor.
Interesting. We've covered pretty much everything. Anything else to kind of mention?
When I say I built this, I used my checkbook.
Checkbook.
I did actually do the electrical wiring because I have experience doing that. So I did the circuit breaker panel installation and all the conduit bending and installation, pulling all the wiring and the devices like that. And but had a really good contractor to work with that was
really
receptive
helps.
to what I wanted to accomplish, and we were able to do it.
Wow. Well, thanks, John, for the tour and letting me video all this. And see what's the next ham fest we'll be going to. Probably Seaside.
Dayton.
Dayton, okay.
Middle of May.
We'll see you at Dayton.
Great.
73, thank you.